everyone, today I wanted to talk about Dimension 20, a D&D podcast that you can watch either on YouTube or DropTv. I was recommended to watch this by Mutual from an algorithm group over on Instagram, so thanks Marco for introducing me to D20. I really liked it, and thanks for kind of pushing me to do it. I went into D20 with no idea of what it was about or any of the premises to any of it. I really kind of wanted to go into it blind and just experience it. Since Fantasy High was the only thing that I could really find easily on YouTube to watch, I went ahead and I started with that first. I want to preface this by saying that I don't like contemporary and I don't like urban fantasy or magical realism like at all, but despite all that, I really fell in love with Fantasy High. Fantasy High, or I should say Brennan, the DM, takes the modern high school trope and completely flips it on its head. This show is like Riverdale on crack, but in a good way. I have like one little gripe about it, and that's that I wasn't a huge fan of the sound effects that were used. I am of the mind of either do your own sound effects or like don't do them at all, but do them if you really want to. I'm not a huge fan of the fake sound effects that are added in. It kind of threw me out of the story a couple of times in the beginning because I wasn't really used to it. Now I'm pretty good at just like tuning it out whenever it happens, but that's just like my one like itty bitty little complaint. My other kind of complaint about the show is that I do wish episode 2 had a content warning, trigger warning for suicide, and I will go ahead and let you know that there is a mention/depiction of suicide in episode 2 of Fantasy High at the very end of it. So please, when you're going into it, just keep that in mind. For me personally, I was on the fence in terms of borderline shock, hysteria, and like honestly pretty triggering because I did just have something happen to me very similarly with a family member. So it was like really abrupt, and it took me a bit to process, and I really kind of wish I had known going into it that was maybe a thing, because it kind of did throw me off the show for a little while. That being said, obviously I continued watching it, and it wasn't a continuing factor in the show and anything like that, but I really wish that there had been a content warning, either on DropTv or on YouTube, that was like, hey, this might happen. So that's just that. Other than those two things, everything else I have to say is really good. Brennan has developed this magical fantasy world wonderfully. I especially enjoyed how technology and magic seamlessly work together, and it didn't feel super unrealistic for technology to exist, especially since the technology was all based on magic to begin with. So that was kind of a cool twist, that instead of it being like computers and tech, it was like all of it was run on magic. I loved the history of the world and the continent as a whole. You could feel that there was like a lot there, and whether or not it actually was, that's kind of the fun thing about being a DM, is that only the DM knows like what's fully fleshed out and what isn't. But as a viewer, and I feel like even if I had been a player, there's so much that Brennan kind of like sprinkled in throughout the story that it just feels like this land is like this ancient rich land that has all of this detailed history, all of these detailed locations and areas, and there's so much substance, and it really made it have like a more genuine experience for me. The players all really follow basic story archetypes, but what's really great about it is that they take those archetypes of the jock and the cheerleader and all this, and they really make it their own. You have Fig, who was the good girl, who's going on kind of a strike against her family because she just found out that she's kind of been lied to her whole life because her dad isn't her real dad. And you have Kristen, who's the good Christian girl who's really trying to figure out what her faith means to her and whether or not it's like a good faith. You have Adine, who's the second sister of a wealthy family who feels really shunted by her parents and that she's not good enough, and so on. The show itself is very obviously a comedy, but Brennan finds really skillful ways to weave in some good moral lessons and just some really good like deep discussion. And most of the time it's done in a comedic fashion, but for the most part, like, it really hits home, such as mental health and abandonment and faith and morality. And it never feels forced. The first few episodes feel kind of rambly because you're getting used to everything and the player characters are getting used to everything as well, but what I really liked was that by the end everything really fit together well, and all of those kind of like odd details in the beginning suddenly like come together in full at the end. It's a wholesome, if somewhat weird, show, but it has movie-length episodes, which are kind of nice because it makes it easier to consume. It's not like this huge portion out of your day or even out of your week that you're having to like set aside time to watch it. It definitely feels like the focus is less on following the D&D rules 100% exactly and more about finding ways to bend them and twist them to make them work better for the plot and for the players and even the DM's enjoyment. Obviously not every D&D campaign can do that kind of stuff, but for Fantasy High I think it really worked to kind of just have this more flexible play style of D&D. So if you're looking for a chaotic and unique D&D show, I really recommend it. It's crass and it's crude. It has morally ambiguous characters, but it's really cute and sweet in its own way. If y'all are interested in me making more of these kind of like D&D podcast reviews or something like that, let me know down in the comments. I actually had a lot of fun doing this. I do plan on watching the rest of Fantasy High that's currently available, and hopefully more will happen and I can continue doing some of these kind of videos for that. And also, if you have any D&D podcast recommendations, please leave them down below in the comments. I absolutely love these. I've really fallen in love with the whole idea of like an audiobook / TV show format. I honestly don't watch these as much as I kind of listen to it, but I really like the fact that there's like an either. I can do either if I really wanted to. Right now though, just to let you know, I have fully watched all of Critical Role, including EXU, caught up on that. I'm currently watching Pirates of the Leviathan on Dimension 20, and I have like all of their shows on my list to get to once I can. And I also really want to try High Rollers. So, fantasy themed, nothing that's like too dark. But yeah, if you have any other recommendations, please leave them down below in the comments because I need more things to listen to. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you all next time.